The world around them warped, the heat of the desert fading into something cooler, more sterile. Zorath raised his hand, and with a sharp, unspoken command, the air seemed to ripple like water disturbed by pebbles. Nanda and Veruschka braced themselves. When the distortion cleared, they stood in the center of a bustling metropolis. Yet it was nothing like the world they knew. The desert's endless horizon had disappeared entirely, replaced by a gleaming cityscape stretching far beyond the eye could see. Towering buildings, some smooth and cylindrical, others spindled like crystalline trees, gleamed with a smooth, metallic sheen that reflected the soft hues of a vibrant sky. The air was crisp, thinner than the heat-choked desert, carrying the scent of synthetic ozone and metallic alloys. Sharp yet clean. Floating platforms zipped by overhead, and sleek humanoid vehicles sped silently along the floating roads, leaving barely a trace behind. Large, translucent screens hung like floating windows from the sides of buildings, projecting holographic ads in dynamic 3D displays. These projections shifted constantly. Advertisements for exotic products, liquid data, memory experiences, and biological upgrades, all in vibrant, ever-changing colors. The architecture seemed to follow no single pattern, with structures rising from the ground in geometric forms, some twisting upward in spirals, others sharp and angular, with shimmering edges that occasionally reflected the stars or the neon glow of distant lights. Hovering humanoid figures in form-fitting suits, their skin aglow with faint digital tattoos, passed them by with ease, unbothered by the abrupt appearance of strangers. Their faces were cool and neutral, bodies fluid in movement, almost as if they were programmed for perfection. Every glance at the people revealed subtle but distinct differences. Eyes glowing faintly with augmented vision, hands fitted with intricate nanotech interfaces that let them interact with the environment around them. "This is the year 4126, Zorath said, his voice cutting through the haze of Nanda and Veruschka's wonder. He stood in the midst of it all, his posture sharp, unaffected by the futuristic chaos around them. He spoke with urgency, his gaze already fixed ahead, but there is no time to admire the scenery. We must move. Nanda felt her eyes drawn to the floating platforms above, where giant holographic birds flapped in and out of sight, their wings stretching into multicolored glimmers. Everything in this world seemed a dream, a mix of organic beauty and harsh technological perfection. Yet the more she looked, the more she understood. Despite the advanced cities and their captivating visuals, the world felt utterly disconnected from nature. The ground was smooth and artificial, with not a single grain of dust or a blade of grass. "Is this really the future?" Veruschka whispered, her eyes wide as she took in the incredible sights. "It's beautiful, but it feels wrong. It's too perfect." Zorath did not pause to explain. He simply started walking, his quick strides unimpeded by the distractions around him. No time for questions. Shempu is close. We need to get to him before he can finish his plans. They followed him through a maze of gleaming streets, their footsteps silent against the immaculate floors. Massive, transparent elevators shot upward beside them, carrying people in pods that looked like suspended glass orbs, floating effortlessly toward the upper levels of the towering spires. The entire city seemed to hum with the quiet energy of millions of souls, all coexisting in this sophisticated, impersonal world. Around them, automated drones with sleek, humanoid forms zipped by, delivering packages, performing minor tasks, and scanning the environment with bright, cold eyes. The air was almost too thin, and the subtle hum of machinery beneath their feet reminded Nanda of a world that had long since moved beyond human needs, a society built around efficiency, technology, and control. Veruschka's voice was soft but filled with awe. "How do you even begin to understand a world like this?" Zorath answered without turning. "You don't. You live in it, or you fight against it. But there is no understanding, not really. Not unless you're one of them." Nanda's fur bristled at the thought. She had grown accustomed to seeing the natural world in its raw beauty, to feeling the dust under her paws, the freedom of open skies and open plains. This world, despite its technological wonders, felt stifling, like a cage. "Keep moving," Zorath urged as he quickened his pace. As they walked, they passed buildings that defied any logic of construction. One building, in particular, stood out, a massive structure that seemed to pulse with light from the inside. Its surface was transparent, revealing layers of moving patterns and shifting geometric designs. Inside, people worked, or perhaps, more accurately, existed, in what appeared to be an infinite loop, always performing the same motions, interacting with data streams that streamed across their bodies, while their faces remained expressionless. It was as if the building was a hive, its occupants living in a constant state of surveillance and servitude, unseeing of the world around them. It made Nanda's skin crawl, but she said nothing. They had no time for questions. Zoreth led them down a narrow alley, the towering spires of the city casting long, jagged shadows over their path. The air crackled with energy, the hum of the metropolis strangely absent as they reached a steel door that slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the room was dim, the only light emanating from a central console pulsing with strange, erratic energy. Shampoo stood at the center, his figure less human than before. He seemed almost suspended in the air, his form constantly shifting, one moment solid, the next a blur of shimmering light and fractured shadow. The very space around him bent and shimmered, like the room itself was warping in response to his presence. The walls flickered, casting strange, distorted reflections of Shampoo's fractured image, as if reality itself were unable to hold on to him. Zoreth's expression darkened. This is where it ends. But he's more unstable than I expected. We have to act quickly. Nanda's tail flicked irritably. What's the plan? You look like you're just watching him fall apart. Zoreth's eyes didn't leave Shampoo, but his voice was calm, measured. His power comes from this fractured link between the digital and physical worlds. He's trying to weave himself into time itself, but he's unstable. I can't sever his connection from here. He's too far gone in this realm. That's why you need to distract him. Veruschka raised an eyebrow. So we're the decoys? Zoreth nodded. You're the only ones who can bring balance to this chaos. The Golden Scarab, its power is rooted in the fabric of time. With it, you can counteract Shampoo's attempt to dominate this realm. But you have to keep him distracted long enough for me to stabilize his anchor point. Shampoo's voice echoed through the room, a distorted laughter filling the space. So, the cat, the woman and the scarab, come to stop me? You've always been too late. His form rippled again, the edges of his body dissolving into fragmented light, but his eyes remained locked on them, cold, furious, and full of contempt. Nanda's claws extended, and she stepped forward. We're done with your game, Shampoo. Her heart pounded in her chest, the scarab pulsing against her fur. You can't control time. The room vibrated as Shampoo's power surged, the digital energy around him flaring in sharp bursts. The pulse of the console grew louder, as if it were alive, feeding off his growing intensity. A shrill sound pierced the air, like 1,000 voices speaking in distorted unison. Shampoo twisted his hands, and the room seemed to fold in on itself, warping with a strange electric hum. Zoreth moved swiftly, eyes narrowing as he watched Shampoo's every move. He's trying to collapse the room into a singularity, a point where time itself is trapped. I can't stop him directly. You have to force him into the open. His control over this place is weakening. Use the scarab. Nanda's eyes flashed with determination, the scarab glowing brighter at her side. She unsheathed her claws, ready to face Shampoo head-on. But she knew they would need more than brute force. This battle wasn't just physical. It was about bending the energy he had fractured in this world. Veruschka stepped beside her, her eyes focused. Let's finish this. Together. As Shampoo raised his arms, the room twisted around them, the energy growing sharp and violent. Zoreth's voice rang out in their minds, guiding them as they moved. Disrupt his flow. The scarab will guide you. His connection to this reality is tenuous. The more you resist, the more he will lose control. Shampoo's form flickered, his edges dissolving into the air like smoke, before it shattered completely, his essence torn apart by the force of the energy ripping through the room. The air pulsed with static, a low hum of collapsing power reverberating in every direction. Nanda's claws dug into the floor as the scarab flared, its energy a blazing pulse that filled the room. Without hesitation, she and Veruschka surged forward in perfect sync. The scarab's light cut through the dark chaos, sending a wave of radiant force that tore into Shampoo's fractured grip on time. For a moment, Shampoo's shattered form wavered in the air, struggling to reassemble. But it was futile. His essence splintered, flickering like a broken hologram. The room hummed with an oppressive energy, the distortion in the air threatening to collapse in on itself. With a final resounding roar, Shampoo's presence shattered completely. In one decisive move, Nanda slammed the scarab into the heart of Shampoo's projection. The force rippled through the room, the projection fracturing like glass, the pieces vanishing into nothingness. A deafening crash followed, as the entire space erupted in a blinding flash of light. For a moment, the world seemed to stop, the light filling every corner of the room. Then, with a sudden stillness, the glow receded. The walls trembled, their once solid form flickering like a fading illusion. The city, the future they had just entered, began to dissolve into the ether. The towering spires and gleaming streets faded, unraveling into the nothingness of time itself. Zoreth's voice broke through the quiet, his presence as calm as ever despite the cataclysmic destruction. It's done. For now. The city, with all its futuristic splendor, was gone, erased as if it had never existed. Nanda and Veruschka felt the familiar warmth of the desert night seep back in, the air thickening with sand as the stars overhead blinked into their eternal positions. The world they had just left seemed like a dream now. Zoreth turned to them, his expression unreadable. But remember, time is never static. It always moves. Always. With those words, the desert seemed to stretch endlessly before them. The breeze carried the scent of sand and ancient winds. And then, without a word more, Zoreth disappeared, his presence vanishing like a whisper in the wind. Nanda and Veruschka stood in the quiet desert, the sand shifting under their paws. The echoes of the future still lingered in the air, but the vast, timeless silence of the desert had returned. Veruschka glanced at Nanda, her voice quieter than usual. It's over, isn't it? You did it, Veruschka said, her voice trembling. She stepped forward, her eyes scanning Nanda's face for any sign of what had just happened. Nanda met her gaze and paused, her chest tight. It had all happened so fast, too fast. And yet, here they were, at the end of their journey. The weight of it all hit her now, settling in the pit of her stomach. The battle was over, but so much had changed. I did, Nanda said, her voice softer than usual, but not without cost. Veruschka tilted her head, taking in the serious tone. The way Nanda's usually sharp eyes seemed distant now. What do you mean? Nanda took a step closer, her gaze flicking down as she fought to find the words. It's over, but it doesn't feel finished. She looked up then, her eyes locking onto Veruschka's. You don't need to follow me anymore. The path ahead, it's mine alone. Veruschka's heart skipped a beat. Nanda, don't say that. We've been through all of this together. You don't have to do everything alone. A faint smile tugged at Nanda's lips, though it didn't reach her eyes. I know, but it's the only way. She turned away, but not before Veruschka caught her by the paw, her grip firm but gentle. I'm not letting you go that easily, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Not after everything. Nanda turned back to face her, the weight of their shared journey crashing down on her all at once. The tears that threatened to spill were held back only by sheer will. I'm not leaving, Veruschka. Not really. But I have to walk this part of the path alone. You've helped me more than you'll ever know. But I can't ask you to follow me into what's coming next. Veruschka's face softened, her grip loosening but not letting go completely. I understand, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But know this, I'm here, always. And I'll be waiting, no matter where your journey takes you. Nanda's heart clenched, her throat tight as she looked at the human who had become so much more than just a companion. She had been a friend, a partner, and now, though she would never admit it aloud, Veruschka had become part of her. Nanda's eyes flicked toward the horizon, where the sun began to rise. Now I move on. There are others who will need my help, bigger things to set right. As Nanda turned to leave, a gentle warmth enveloped her. Somewhere beyond the realm of mortals, Bastet watched, her eyes gleaming with pride. The goddess, always a guiding force in Nanda's life, felt a deep satisfaction as she observed her protector grow stronger and wiser with each challenge faced. The bond between them had deepened, and Bastet knew that Nanda was destined for even greater things. Veruschka opened her mouth to ask more, but Nanda had already started walking, her sleek form disappearing into the shadows of the early morning. The echoes of Bastet's approval lingering in the air behind her.